Regulatory agencies like the Federal Trade Commission handle close to 2 million cases of fraud and identity theft each year. In addition, they also handle over 100 Consumer Protection Act violation lawsuits against companies of all sizes. Without their regulations and oversights, customers and businesses would be taken advantage of in all sorts of ways. For example, do you remember when you were a kid and you used to ask your parents for their phone so you could play Candy Crush or Plants vs. Zombies? And then either by accident or on purpose, you ended up purchasing 25,000 tokens to unlock all the cool parts of the game? Or how about this, since maybe games weren't your thing? Maybe you borrowed their phone and then you spent $70 buying Little Einstein movies on Amazon Prime Video. Each year, companies were making millions of extra dollars in revenue by accidental purchases. To remedy the situation, the Federal Trade Commission stepped in and demanded that businesses put better measures in place to prevent further accidental purchases from happening. So here's another example that's local. How many times in the past week have you received a phone call about your car's extended warranty, even though your phone number is on the do not call registry? My wife even got some of these phone calls and she doesn't even have a driver's license. Any company that makes calls like this are violating your rights under the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. In addition, it is using illegal practices that offsets fair competition with competing businesses. Dish Network, here in Colorado, learned the hard way back in 2017 that you're not allowed to do this. It was discovered that in order to promote business, they started making robocalls using numbers specifically on the do not call registry. The end result of their blatant disregard of regulations landed them with a $280 million civil penalty. By and large, organizations like the Federal Trade Commission does its best to protect consumers and businesses alike in our free enterprise system. In today's video, you will learn about different regulations by their type. The common examples shared keep not only customers safe, but also fairly balanced competition with other businesses. When it comes to advertising and marketing, there are certain rules that are in place to ensure that you are getting the correct product in the right condition among a host of other measures. For example, you cannot knowingly pass off goods, services, or property as those of another. In other words, you can't sell your Louis Vuitton knockoff bag as a Louis Vuitton bag. You cannot knowingly make false representations as to the source, sponsorship, approval, or certification of goods, services, or property. That's a long way of saying you can't say that Michael Jordan endorses your shoes if he doesn't even know who you are. You also can't say that goods are original or new if you know that they've been deteriorated, altered, reconditioned, reclaimed, used, or secondhand. Finance laws usually have a number of concerns when it comes to taxes, but they also apply to laws about loans. For example, anti-discrimination rules about applying for loans are taken very seriously. People should not be discriminated against for their gender, race, age, or sexual orientation. And in some states like Colorado, Nevada, and California, it is also illegal to discriminate against someone based on their credit score. There are also rules about what the maximum interest rates on loans and finance charges that can be given. It's important to know that state law can often trump federal law. For example, in federal law, there is no limit on the maximum finance charge given on a loan, whereas Colorado gives a very specific percentage cap. Finally, to make businesses honest, you also cannot disguise your loans as personal property or sales transactions. They are debt, not income. Employment and labor laws are in place to give your employees a fair wage and to ensure safe and beneficial working conditions. No matter where you work, you will receive a minimum wage and be eligible for overtime rates at time and a half. Again, state regulations can trump federal rates. Within the past decade, workplace accommodations for nursing mothers have also been instituted. Working mothers have the right to take care of their business in a private room to ensure that their baby has the nutrients it requires. Finally, whistleblower laws are in place to protect employees against retaliation for doing the right thing. If a business is doing something illegal and the employee tells somebody, they cannot be fired, demoted, or reassigned to a less desirable position. Intellectual property rights protect businesses primarily from copyright infringement, but that's not all. The most common regulation is misappropriation of anything that you have copyrighted or trademarked for your business. But there are also laws that help eliminate website domain cybersquatting. Someone can't go out and buy a domain name and then hold it for ransom for a huge amount of money. For example, a man only named as Mr. Zeng had been cybersquatting on the domains OrientalDreamworks.com and ShanghaiDreamworks.com. Zeng had registered over 200 domain names and had never used any of them in the form of business. In the DreamWorks case, he was asking for about $16,000 for the domain names. Mr. Zeng was forced by the court to give up his domains. When it comes to online business, taxes are going to be the most common type of regulation. If you are selling your products out of your state, you will need to address sales taxes for the other states. In addition, each state has its own set of regulations. So for example, if your product uses plastic bottles, California mandates an 11-cent recycling fee for them. If you are shipping your products overseas, you will also need to determine what regulations each country has in place. So for example, in Australia, the final online price must also include the taxes. They are not allowed to be separated. When customers make payments online, you must also have anti-fraud measures and other security measures in place. This ensures that customers will not have their identity stolen while making transactions, and also to make sure that their children aren't accidentally purchasing the 797 skins on Fortnite. When it comes to administrative law, you're going to want to look up the specific state that you're in. So here I'm at Colorado regulations. You can see here's the state administrative rules, and you're going to have to determine for yourself where you're going to fall in line when it comes to some of these different regulations. You can see there's transportation, there's revenue, education, public safety, so on and so forth. So let's say I want to make a hydroelectric company and I want to put it on Stanley Lake. So for that, we're going to go over here to the Department of Natural Resources and take a look at that. Let's go to Colorado Water Conservation Board. I'm sure it's going to have to do something with this as well. And then we're going to take a look at some of those regulations and rules that are there. So we don't have to, I don't think, worry about the floodplain so much, but definitely the in-stream flow and the natural lake level. That would probably be a big concern that we would have. So we're going to take a look at that. And all right, here's our list. And we'll look at the permanent rule that's in place so far. So as you can see here, here's the Department of Natural Resources. There's a conservation board that's in place. They have all of these rules and stipulations. There's 28 pages of this. I'm sure it's very exciting reading. But if you are trying to make that hydroelectric company and you want to put it on Stanley Lake, you're definitely going to want to read this over and make sure you follow all the stipulations and guidelines should you get approval of, that kind of a company. Contract laws are equally numerous like administrative laws. The most important thing when it comes to contracts is to get your agreements with the other party in writing. Spoken contracts are often more difficult to prove in court if someone doesn't complete their end of the bargain. In business, the most common example include employment contracts with employees, construction or lease agreements depending upon if you're building or renting, and licensing agreements with computer software. It's important to know that contracts are legally binding and will hold up in court should anyone breach the agreement. These can be helpful when dealing with legal matters. For example, You may need to fire an employee for frequent truancy or misconduct at work. If you hired them without having them sign a contract, but you made promises to them, you may be in a situation where wrongful termination took place and the employee could take legal action against you. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to laws and regulations when running a business. It is important to do adequate research and possibly seek legal assistance to assure your business will be adequately prepared should you encounter any legal matters with your company.